Welcome back to Ophelia. A quick refresher if you drifted off last night. On the evening of her return to Elsinore Castle, Ophelia attended the royal ball. She danced with her childhood friend, Hamlet, and for the first time in years, felt truly seen, chosen. Away from the crowd, she crossed paths with Horatio. His sharp words and guarded presence unsettled her, even as they intrigued her. The night ended softly, with laughter, lingering looks, and the promise of her 21st birthday to come. But when Ophelia fell asleep, the warmth she dreamed of grew into a living, breathing thing. She woke to find her chamber overtaken by vibrant greenery, her orange seedling grown into a rooted, thriving tree. And with it came a terrifying truth, settling deep in her bones. The magic forbidden in Darkia had awakened in her. The previous night had ended in warmth and wonder, but morning came quickly like an unwelcome guest. Grey light leaked through the stained glass, dappled by leaves that hung where open air once filled the room. The walls and floor were barely visible past the branches, leaves, and roots, which had twisted wildly in every direction through the night. Ophelia lay very still, listening to her own breath, to the soft creak and rustle of vines shifting against the stone. The room breathing around her, green and alive and utterly impossible. The joy of it lasted only a heartbeat before fear rushed in to take its place. Magic. Earth magic. The very thing the kingdom hunted, and it had come from her. The air was thick with the scent of sap and damp earth. Somewhere above her, a bird chirped, inside the castle absurdly. She pushed herself upright, sheets sliding down to her waist. The movement sent a tremor through the greenery. Jasmine brushed her wrist. A rose cane creaked, thorns clicking faintly as if in response. "No," she whispered, though to whom or what she was not sure. She swung her feet to the floor and stood. The stone beneath her soles was unnaturally warm, and her chest drew tight beneath her breastbone. The orange tree loomed where the little clay pot had once sat, broad-leafed, glossy, heavy with small green fruit that glowed faintly in the dim. Shards of the pot lay scattered at its base like bones. Ophelia stared at it, her hands clenched at her sides. She had done this, in her sleep, without meaning to, without knowing how. If anyone saw... The thought snapped her into motion. Ophelia crossed the room quickly, skirts catching and tearing on creeping stems and thorns. She grabbed the nearest vine with both hands. It was thicker than it looked, rough beneath her fingers. She pulled. The vine resisted, not violently, not aggressively, but with a stubborn living tension that made her arms ache. She gritted her teeth and yanked harder. Thorns bit into her palms. She hissed, releasing it instinctively, and blood whirled bright and sharp against her skin. "Gods!" she breathed, staring at the thin lines already forming. The vine recoiled a fraction, leaves shivering. "I'm sorry," she said without thinking. Ophelia had always spoken to her plants in the solitude of her garden, but they'd never responded. This was absurd. She had finally lost her senses. But she had no time for this. Servants would come soon. Her father might come. Anyone might come. As if on cue, a soft knock sounded at the door. Ophelia froze, one hand tangled in a curtain of wisteria. Her heart slammed against her ribs. "Lady Ophelia?" a maid's voice called, tentative. "Your father sent me to see if you were awake." Ophelia swallowed. Her stomach knotted around itself like the flowering vines in her hand. "Yes," she called back, forcing steadiness into her voice. "Yes, just a moment." She yanked the wisteria down in a frenzy. Blossoms rained around her feet. The vine thudded to the floor, and she kicked it under the bed with a graceless shove. "The room is a mess," she added, louder now, thinking quickly. "And I want to dress myself. I'll head to my father's room shortly." There was a pause. Ophelia imagined the maid on the other side, frowning, perplexed. "Of course, my lady," the voice said at last. Footsteps retreated. Ophelia sagged against the wall, breath shuddering out of her. Her trembling legs threatened to fold beneath her. She slid down until she was sitting on the floor amid the leaves. Tears burned her eyes, not from pain, though there was plenty of that, but from the sheer weight of it, from the knowledge settling heavy and inescapable in her chest. She was one of the changed. After a few moments, she scrubbed her face with the back of her hand and pushed herself upright again. There would be time to break later. Now, there was only hiding. She wrapped her hands in the hem of her shift and tried again, this time working carefully, twisting the vine loose from the bedpost where it had curled. Thorns scraped her wrists, snagging her sleeves. Each movement left another sting, another shallow cut. Sap smeared her fingers, sticky and sweet-smelling. The room seemed to resist her efforts, not with force, but with sorrow. Leaves drooped when she tore them free. Petals scattered across the floor, shedding like tears. The air grew heavier with every plant she pulled away. She worked until her arms shook, until her palms burned and her knees ached from kneeling on stone. Her breathing came fast and uneven. Her hair clung damply to her temples. Blood streaked her forearms, bright against her skin. She did what she could. She bundled plants into sheets and dragged them towards the hearth, shoving what she dared into the dying embers, wincing as green hissed and blackened. Still, the greenery remained. Too much of it. Far too much. She placed her hands on the floor, where small green shoots were still slowly rising between the cracks. The hum beneath her skin pulsed, confused, listening. "Stop," she begged silently. "Please." It responded, and slowly the greenery shrunk back and disappeared. By the time she was finished, the room looked better. Bare stone showed through again. The air cooled, though it remained faintly humid, scented with crushed leaves and smoke. The orange tree still stood undeniable, but she draped a heavy curtain over it, masking its bulk. She washed her hands and arms in a basin, watching pink water swirl around. The cuts stung sharply. She left them uncovered. Bandages would invite questions. When at last she smoothed her hair and changed into a simple gown, she barely recognized the woman staring back from the mirror. Her eyes looked too bright. Her skin was flushed. There was something raw and wild about her she could not quite tamp down. A knock came again, this time firmer. "Ophelia," her father Polonius called. "You are late." "I'm coming," she said. She slid out the door, opening it as little as possible. Polonius kissed her cheek, wished her a happy birthday, and told her she had a visitor. His smile was smug as he walked away. That alone should have been an indicator of whom she would find there. Hamlet was waiting for her in the main hall, leaning against the stone with studied ease. He wore a dark coat instead of court finery, his hair falling onto his forehead as he watched her approach. "Happy birthday, Leah," he said, his smile blooming. Then he faltered. "What happened?" he said softly, his eyes drawn to her hands and arms. She glanced down reflexively. Blood had dried in thin lines along her wrists. Her hands were red and scraped. knuckles nicked and swollen. "I was clumsy," she said quickly. "The room is unfamiliar. I tripped on a rug." His brow furrowed. He stepped closer, taking her hand gently. His thumb brushed one of the cuts. His touch was light, questioning, searching. "You're shaking," he murmured. She pulled her hand back, heart skidding at his touch. "I'm fine, truly." He smirked, but the concern did not leave his eyes. He didn't press the issue, but offered her his arm. "You look as though you could use air." The offer sent a strange thrill through her heart leaping at the chance to escape, to be outside in the wilds of Darkia. They passed through the quieter corridors of the castle, down worn steps and out into the pale morning. Mist clung low to the ground, curling around their boots as they crossed the outer courtyard. Guards nodded to Hamlet, scarcely sparing Ophelia a glance. Beyond the walls, the land stretched stark and open, hills rolling towards the horizon in shades of grey and brown. Hamlet led her along a narrow path she remembered from childhood, one that wound away from the main roads. "I thought," he said lightly, "we might escape before the day swallows us whole." She managed a small smile. "You always did have a talent for that." He didn't answer right away. His gaze lingered on her as if she was a piece in a puzzle he ached to solve. "You're different today," he said at last. Her stomach tightened. "Different? How?" Hamlet's mouth curved slowly. "Like you're trying very hard not to let me notice you." Ophelia paused, but tried to play it off casually. "And is it working?" He turned and stepped directly in front of her. It was nothing dramatic, but it stole the air from her lungs all the same. "Not remotely," he said, leaning closer to look in her eyes. They stood there, frozen, Hamlet watching Ophelia, and Ophelia trying to decide if she wanted to be watched. His eyes dipped to her mouth for a moment. Ophelia smiled. She leaned forward, grazing his cheek and whispering into his ear, "I've missed this," before brushing past him and continuing on the path. He followed, dropping his concern for princely bravado. "So you admit you have missed me?" Ophelia responded with playful indignation. "I said this." She motioned to the open landscape. "You were merely adjacent." "Adjacent," he repeated, savouring the word like the kiss he almost took moments before. "I wouldn't have described myself as adjacent to our adventures, Leah." Ophelia's smile progressed to a grin, and the horror and fear of the morning melted away in the fresh air. The path dipped, then rose again, and soon the castle was half lost behind them in the mist. Ahead, a wall of trees emerged, thin, skeletal trunks clustered together like ribs. "The dead wood," Hamlet said, following her gaze. "Hardly anyone comes here anymore, but you always loved it when we were young." They continued forward, the ground carpeted with brittle leaves, grey and papery beneath their feet. Ophelia felt it before they reached the first tree. That same low hum from that morning stirred beneath her skin, deeper now and heavier. The air seemed to thicken, pressing against her chest. As they stepped beneath the bare branches, a hush fell. Even the birdsong faded. Hamlet slowed, sensing her change. "Ophelia, are you all right?" She nodded, though her pulse raced, her fingers tingled, a faint warmth spreading through her palms. The trees creaked, leaning ever so slightly. At first, she thought it was the mist playing tricks on her eyes. Then she heard it, a sound too soft to be wind, a breath passing through lips. She stopped walking. "Hamlet," she whispered. "What is it?" She turned slowly, her gaze tracing the twisted branches. The sound grew clearer as she focused on it. Not words, not yet, but something close. The trees were whispering. Her heart hammered. She closed her eyes just for a moment and the world shifted. The hum surged, flooding her whole being. Images flickered behind her eyes, roots pushing through stone, water drawn up from deep places, a memory of green so old it ached. Her mouth went dry. They were speaking to her. She did not understand how she knew that. She only knew that if she listened, truly listened, she might understand. A sharp crack split the hush. Ophelia's eyes flew open as a twig snapped behind them.